This conference will now be recorded.
Will the clerk please call roll?
One. Everhart.
Here.
Present.
Schreiber.
Here. Here. Thank you. On to item number 4, consent agenda. A is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting, June 22nd, 2026. B, approval of statement of bills paid in the amount of $1,211,719.85.
Madam Mayor, if there's no questions or comments, I make a motion to approve consent agenda items 4A and B.
Second. We have a motion from Councilman Shriver, a second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll?
Bullock.
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
Adcox.
Yes.
Everhart.
Yes.
Vote passes.
Item number 5 is requests or comments from the public. You'll have 3 minutes. Start with your name and address. When you have 30 seconds left, I'll give you a signal that it's time to wind it down, so you know, and you can start when you're ready.
Mr. Cooper and myself have a small water drainage issue on our property. We've been in discussions with the city manager. And at one point we filed an appeal, which is right according to city ordinances. There's supposed to be a technical review by the way I read the ordinance, that should happen in 10 days. Much longer than 10 days. So I've heard about technical. So we're just here tonight to find out, get this technical. What needs to happen.
So to put it in context a little bit, the sidewalk on 104th was put in 1,200 square feet of porous vegetation replaced by 1,200 square feet. So if you look at your ordinance, it uses what's called the rationale. It's actually a common method used to calculate stormwater runoff. And of course, there's some variables: the grade, the rate of rainfall, soil composition. A very survey estimate puts on a 1-inch rain 1,400 gallons of water. So it first pools in my backyard. It'll go over my easement and under his fence. So put a finer point on it. When you see a fuel tanker, like a Quick Trip or a fuel station filling up with fuel tanks, those are typically 5,000 gallon tanks. So in 2 inches of rain, we're getting 2,800 gallons of water between our property. And again, just briefly put that in context, that's like half of one of those big, huge tanks. So, we've been dealing with this for a couple of years, and just requesting the technical review committee be appointed to continue the process.
Thank you, guys.
Vicky Pavsich, 131 South 110th Street. I'm on the 80-acre tract that's directly across from here. I want to call your attention to a letter we received. Carolyn, did you get a chance to pass it out?
I did.
About a proposed substation plus high voltage power lines that are going to be coming through our community. If you look at this letter in the first paragraph, it says exactly what I just mentioned. I talked to the gentleman who wrote this letter, Alan Hackett. He assured me there would be no new construction of a substation, which is contradictory to the first paragraph. I asked him why are we getting surveyed. If you recall, about 3 years ago, I went out in the middle of my pasture and I had big red circles with arrows where they had come on my property for proposed route to run a voltage line directly through the middle of my pasture. He assured me today. They weren't going to do that. And I said to them, I don't think it's appropriate to run power lines, high voltage lines, through pasture land. It should be on the streets. They said, oh no, we're not going to do any of that. So I said, so why are you surveying? His answer, I'm trying to find out parcel boundaries. I find that hard to believe, considering the fact that you get that information from the county. But if you look in the letter, it says they're surveying to find a proposed route for the high voltage line. I just want to make you all very much aware of this. I don't think we want this in our community. I know 3 years ago it came up, and I'm not sure how it went by, but it did. But one thing you all need to know, Edwardsville's going to proceed with this, because all of us up in that area, our power, Edwardsville is buying from EPU. It's one of the reasons they want to get away from it, get their own station and hook up to the power grid. So I think this gentleman who wrote this letter can't really be trusted. He's supposed to call me tomorrow. He informed me they would be hooking into two different substations. He wasn't sure which one, which is approximately a mile from me. But he couldn't tell me which direction. So I think I'd be a little bit wary of this guy. I think they're definitely going to put it through. It's just a matter of what the city wants them to do, or do you have any control over what they do? I'm not. I don't know that. But I want to make you all aware that this is going to happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
On K-12, Dave Johnson, World Fly, South Dakota. On K-32, they've been repaving. I thought those companies that were having the excavation going out was to control mud washing out on K-32. So the highway just got repaved, and there's a ton of mud that's washed out on K-32. I think everybody's noticed it. That's one thing for the attention to see. Thank you.
No other comments? We will move on to item number 6. Just a reminder, council can't respond right directly during the comment time, but if you're around at the end of the meeting, we'll try to answer questions as we can, or direct staff to follow up. Item number 6 on the agenda is presentation of the 2025 financial audit. Oh, I can hardly hear over the
They need to
fan.
turn that fan on.
Yeah, was there a need to amend the agenda? Section, I don't know if it's now or later.
I think we'll do that with item 9, if that's appropriate. Thank you. It's just so loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excellent. Good evening. So the report that we're going to be looking at, and I'm going to respect everybody's time because I probably could talk a long time about this stuff, but I'm going to narrow it down for y'all. It's going to be a little bit broad, but we're going to get into the statutory piece of the audit, but then we're going to dive into more details that you won't find in here. So it's really going to be a couple pieces going on here. Okay, so the first thing I want to make sure we all understand, because I will tell you, your city, you have a lot of funds to deal with. You have overall 26 total funds. And I know when we say the words funds, it can be a little bit confusing, so I always break it down like this. think of each fund as a separate business. So in theory, we're really trying to keep track of 26 different businesses going on. Where the complexity comes into on these funds is really when you start looking at your capital project funds. And that's kind of the buildup of where a lot of your funds are, along with the special purpose funds. Other than that, you don't have a big utility, you have sewer, you don't have electric, water, so that's takes some of the complexity out. But your general fund is the workforce. I mean, it does a lot of things, but that is the background of the fund structure. Here's something that when we go through these audits, and I think, gosh, 30 some years going through these, and I've been to meetings, I've been to seminars, this stuff never gets talked about. We don't talk about the general health of the city. We have, usually it's not even evaluated how well a city is doing. So I want to get into a little bit of that, not within the time here, but there's a lot in here that you should have a package, and it's got a lot of great information in it. Get that. So let's get in statutory. Now, the state of Kansas requires every audit has to go through what we call the statutory piece, and these are what's called the Kansas Municipal Audit Guide. That audit guide has various questions in it that we go through. So first of all, let's look at this. Payroll tax complaint. Very big one for most cities. You guys did an excellent job. Did not find any differences going on between 941s, the payroll registers, all that rolled up pretty nice. So fantastic. I think you can relate to that a little bit. But so then we go into debt service payments. And this is a little bit of an odd one by statute because you're making payments, and even though, yeah, they're getting there, the state of Kansas requires they got to be there 20 days early. We're not quite getting that. So we're a little bit off on the timing of those. They're getting paid, just not by the statutory deadline. When we confirm all the debt, the state then gives us the feedback, not only what the balances are, but also are you in compliance. So that's where we get that information at. Budget-wise, for the most part, pretty solid. We have a few funds where we exceeded the budget, and those are just called budget violations. Technically, when you get into those, by the end of the year, you try to amend those and update them so that it doesn't become a violation. The other one, and talked to Doug a little bit about this, was the taking money out of a bond and interest, transferring it, which I think was supposed to go to a general fund, but it went into a technology. Let me just explain this. Bond and interest fund, very restricted. Monies coming out of that fund technically are only for principal and interest, nothing else. There can't be any movement of money until all those bonds are paid out. So, and that usually happens when the bonds are done and there's still money left over in the account or in the fund. Then it transfers. So just got to keep an eye on that. Tax levy funds. One of the things that, which was really strange to me, because when I looked at the 2025 budget that lease was filed, we didn't find any motor vehicle tax on it. And I was thinking, that's really weird. And then Doug gives me an internal one, and I'm looking at it, I'm going, well, I see the motor vehicle tax on this, but I don't see it in the budget filed with the state. So I'm thinking, I don't know which is right or wrong.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, if I may, a couple of these, I would say we probably need to have a conversation.
Sure.
About this. frankly, we don't agree that there were areas where expenditures exceed, but we're very cautious about that.
Well, those are just based on your stuff compared to the budget authority.
The stuff I have in my information
Yeah,
indicates that those less than budget.
yeah, well, we can agree.
We can do a follow-up on it.
Yeah,
That'd be
that's
fine.
But the motor vehicle tax, the reason I bring this up is without that included, it does impact your total property tax dollar. So with that in there, it reduces the amount of property taxes. Without it, it increases it. So you have to look at that. And that's, I don't know what to say about that. It's just the budget that we're looking at did not include that. But that was the main violation of the budget in the clicker doesn't work. Me or you? Okay, so then we get into some accounting, some interesting things here. One of the, I think you guys are like back to back on doing stuff, on these conversions. And so when you look at software conversions, especially on the utility side, sometimes those things are very strict. You cannot go backwards on them. Which means if nothing was generated, unless you're willing to go back and pay for it, we get the information, because we have seen it happen on so many occasions. We just don't have a document. And I think we were, I don't know, 2 months. I think it was 2 months we didn't have a document. The sewer budget, and maybe you guys go more detail somewhere, but if you look at the sewer budget that's filed in 2025, all I see is total expenditures. I don't see a detail. So normally it goes personnel, contractual, commodities, transfers, what have you. A little more detail. Sewer building. So we couldn't test the entire year. We tested after the conversion. So we were able to test that. Then what we found was we had these 2 months where commercial people were being charged at the 2026 rate. Then 25 rate, and then it got 50. I think it got 50. They're going to have to look at that, determine what's going to happen to that. If there was no payment. The other side is we cannot use what's in the financial statement with your budget. And I say that because it's overstated by about 2 months. So last year we had an understatement because of November, December, which went into this year instead of last. So we got really 14 months of sewer in addition, but we're cash basis. So it creates a little bit of a difference. Okay, so just think about that when you guys are budgeting, take that into consideration. Bond and interest fund, that thing has over 500 days of cash. I don't know why. Usually,
Did you have,
180 days. Sure.
500 days.
Mhm.
Yeah, 16 million.
Yeah, that's quite a bit. Right. That makes sense.
Then we have the gaming check, and this is where you get into accrual basis versus cash basis. So statutory or cash basis, we follow on a cash basis should be in 26, regardless if it's 4 or 25. So you have to look at it again for budget purposes, so they can't mess you up. We talked a little bit about the sewer revenue, so those are things to do to mess you up. Okay, now, when you look at this, this is just a nice snapshot of all those 26 funds without listing every single one of them. And what I've done is just summarize, but the key numbers that I look at on these are out to the side. You look at your base and cash, and you can see the general fund is very healthy, has 88 days of cash. Benchmark wise, as long as that fund's operating in 45 days, you have some reserves, you're protected. Special revenue, it's always a tough one, but there's, I mean, I use benchmarks at 90 days. You've got 358 days of cash, pretty strong. Didn't worry about capital projects, but in theory, money comes in, money can go back out, they zero out at some point. Enterprise funds, which is sewer trash, those are very healthy. You've got 364 days of cash. Benchmark 180. It's, I think Doug indicated, yeah, it's got 531 days right now. A lot of cash. 180 is kind of the benchmark, but that's going to change as you start to bring that down. But you ended the year, which at $26 million. Now you got to take into consideration 16 million came in from the bond. So when I look at your cash, I kind of back that out because that's not operating cash. But you still have a very sound cash position in this city. Now, here's another way, because when you look at the statutory requirements, all these different funds, you would have no idea how much you generated, how much you take in property tax, how much you take in on anything without having to go through every single fund and total them up. So I get it, because I think this is much easier to look at. Now, I did take out, when you look at the comparison up here, because it is relatively comparable, but I did take out the bond process because that would have skewed this thing so bad. But you can see that for every dollar that comes into the city, 65 cents of it comes from property taxes, sales taxes. That's where your revenue comes. You are a little bit different than a lot of cities, just in your, how much you take in for. You take in a lot in your report. So, everything else on there, relatively comparable year over year. You can see the sewer fees, what I'm talking about, see how the difference there of 1.1 million to basically 700,000. That's tiny. That's getting extra months in, okay? But that is really your city where you generate your revenues from. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to pay out. What do we pay out? For all this money coming in, where's it going? Well, like most cities, and again, I took out the town center because it kind of distorts this. But you've got 51% going out in personnel. Your debt service, 900. Vehicles, I mean, most of this is from 14 million to 12 million. And you kind of go through there and look at the variance. But again, you wouldn't find this inside financial statements unless you want to go total it all up by the 26. So, but not bad year over year for what you guys, for the type of city and the structure. Now, the other area, because you guys are heavily dependent property taxes and sales tax. That's the two big. So, when we think of property taxes, man, I do these seminars all over the state, and the first thing I always say, have you ever thought about affordability? Because affordability is really, if you will, normally what happens. We go calculate out things, okay, well, that's how much kind of back in. But we never complete it by going. And so I think that's a big thing. Our state does a horrible job of gathering this information too. We just don't have a good database of all this. Normally, I've got to pull my own stuff to get some of this, but I think it's a key. One thing that, really the city's going to have to start thinking about, not just your city, all cities. The state's going to get something here on property taxes. I mean, they had it last year passed, and they're going to put a cap, they're going to do something on property taxes. Because I think the people have really been speaking, and it's getting concerned when you have property taxes, sales tax, income tax, federal, state, gas tax. It just starts to add up. The other thing I would say, because property taxes are based on appraised value. Appraised value comes from our county, which again, this year, still couldn't get the information needed to really break down the city's tax base. Could not get it. And the mayor even tried to help, could not get it. So, the one piece that I did look at, and this comes from the state of Kansas, how well are they doing at appraising homes in this city? Well, you had a what they call a median ratio of 90%. That means appraised value is 90% below, or at 90% of the sales price. They really want that to be 95 to 105. So the county's appraisal is a little bit off on that. The COD 13.62 now is looking at, are they appraising this stuff equitable? Meaning that our house is appraised at 200,000, selling at 200,000, are they being appraised of approximately the same? According to this, they're pretty much. So they did a pretty good job in that area, but because it does impact everybody here, how they go about doing their appraisal. So this is what one of the positive things when I say dependent, you'll notice your allocation up here of all the taxes coming into the city. So 51% is coming from property taxes, 36 cents from sales tax. That is actually a good allocation because it says you have some diversification in your property. You're not just, there's some cities that are about 80% dependent on property taxes. So you're not. Then you have the average household. When I look at this, it says basically it's supporting about $2,400 property taxes right now. And we're going to find out if that's in the realm here of affordability. This was interesting. When you look at your trends, and this is starting with the assessed value. So 2020, $70 million assessed value. 2025, about 113. So what I like to do is put that in relationship to inflation. Are we growing at a significant rate that is much faster than inflation? Well, if I started in 2020 and I said, okay, I just want to follow inflation, what would be your assessed value? The 87. So you're definitely actually growing at a much faster pace than inflation. So its assessed value that would be, you've increased it 10%. Think about this, your assessed value is increasing 10%. Inflation over that same period, 1.2. So now, here's the thing, can't tell if that's commercial or residential. But we don't have the breakout. It'd be nice to know, because it would help. The tax levy, 3.98%. So, and that has actually been pretty steady, which means as things are going up, you're not technically, allowing those to stay at. If you increase your assessed value 10%, you're not collecting 10% property tax. Drop it. So that's what that's trying to do. And then you see per capita. So now we're changing the big numbers. We know 50% of property tax is coming into the city. So let's break it down per. And so in 2020, 677. 2025, 953. So that is growing at a 7% year-over-year growth rate. On the other side, you've got your mill levy, which has decreased by 2%. So not all of the assessed value is being put back to the property. So, and that's an important thing to look at too as you're going through. It's always, the 953 is now starting to get into affordability. And keep in mind, this is only the city's portion. This is not school, county, everything else. So then I put this matrix together, and I tell you, the hardest thing I have when I put these together to help you understand the property taxes, it's trying to come up with a peer group. And it's hard to find one for you guys because you're a little bit unique. Where you sit at, your demographics are fantastic. You actually are a city that had some growth in population. A lot of the cities around this size are kind of dropping in population. But what I like to look at is the very first one where you look at that property tax affordability. And what this is looking at is we want to know when you look at household median income, right? Because that's your ability to pay. And you take the property tax per capita against that, what does that work out to? Well, we're just over 3%. Benchmarking by the PFOA, they like to see that less than 2.5. So when you get above that, it's always, okay, what's different? Well, you guys are a little bit different in that you have 24-hour EMS service, and some cities don't have it. So that creates some differences. All this is designed to do is really help you look at, are we starting to push too high? Are we in the ballpark? Where are we at with property? So that's what that's trying to do. Property tax growth, talked about that. Public support, population support, tax growth to inflation. So basically all that's saying is that every $1 when inflation goes up, you're collecting another $1.63. That important trend is to look at over a number of years. So really when I look at this, it's really getting back to understanding household median income. And then that gets broken down into the 20th percentile, fixed income. That helps you gauge whether or not are you getting too high. So, like most cities, personnel costs dominates. And here's what it always throws people off when you think of personnel costs. Because you never factor in all the other stuff that goes with it. And the biggest things, health insurance, it's gone crazy. Everybody's getting hit by health insurance. Here, it's a little bit different because you've got regular capers, and then you've got capers for the police and the fire. So you really have two different retirement plans going on within the city. And believe it or not, both of them have different contribution rates that are applied. So one's like 9% and the other's, I don't know, 15 or 16%. But when you factor everything together based on the total hours of everybody that's worked, that is the breakout. So as you can see, every dollar of personnel costs, 68% salary, 13% is coming from health insurance, papers, technically it's 14% when you combine the two. You got 5% in taxes. So, but that, you can go to any city, it's going to dominate the expense structure. Then we had a really good report too that basically gave us all the hours. And so when you get to full-time equivalents, you got to keep in mind, it's not full-time people. It's taking all the hours that you have and then going, okay, 2,080 hours represents a year, full year of employment. So you divide it out, and this gives you your full-time equivalent. So there's a lot of part-time stuff going on that gets, you could have 10 part-time people. Sometimes they only make up one full-time equivalent. But it is a good number to look at. The other thing is good, and again, it's hard to get apples to apples, because your city with the police and fire is a little bit different than cities of 4,000 people. And it's hard to find any really good comparisons. And of course, the league had a little bit of information, but they're usually 2 years behind, but at least gives you some information to evaluate.
Just quickly, I appreciate that distinction for Mr. Brew. For two reasons. One, I don't want to take out a stroke because
Yes.
we don't have 30 full-time
Yeah.
emergency services. So that distinction is important.
For the full-time equivalent,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
We don't have.
People get confused on that all the time.
Yep, it's not full-time employee, it's full-time
It's
equivalent. Yes,
So I just want to make sure we're all grounded.
absolutely. Thank you.
You know, people get so confused on that. And the reason why you go to equivalence is because it's the only way to measure anything is by, because otherwise, how do you measure part-time? You can't go, well, that was a 0.25 or a 0.10, so you combine them all. It's just, it's how the GFOA does calcs.
Right, and that's how they do it for students in school, college
Yeah.
equivalents, full-time equivalent. So, but it is a good to know the difference between employee and equivalents.
Debt, okay, so the biggest piece on debt, when I start looking at that, of the 26 million, 16 million going on in this town center, you've got 11.3% of your revenue that's covered by debt payments, 1.28 times, which means, hey, you're able to pay for your debt service, because if that was running at 1, we'd be going, we're running a little tight. So, and then the other thing you have going on is that your valuations are going up, which kind of helps us debt. Keep in mind, the state of Kansas, when they look at, and there's all kinds of different arguments on this. You have the Government of Finance Officers Association who will look at debt and go, man, we think that it should be 15% of assessed valuations. You go to the state of Kansas, and by statute, 30%. You go issue a bond, they'll look at the state of Kansas and go, okay, as long as we're within that 30% of assessed valuation, but then what happens is we have overlapping. And the whole thing is so convoluted at the end. So I think 30% of assessed value is a little high. So I like to break it down more, again, on the per capita amount. I think it's a little easier to think about it. But you guys really, I mean, it's, if your debt is manageable, there's a few things that when you look at this, first of all, the interest rates on here, if you look at these interest rates, those are really good. So, and you've got some debt. Well, we don't know exactly because I'm not sure. Oh, December 29th. Okay, 20. That's when that town center bond is going to get turned out because it's just temporary right now. So I thought there was another temporary too. Oh, it's in 2023. But I think that one's getting
Those are, yeah, those are
converted to term.
from the finance.
Yeah, gotcha. Now, keep in mind, this is 26 million. I didn't put leases into this. And you know, the other thing that never gets added to debt is what I call the hidden debt, which is papers. You have obligations to papers. You have obligations to the fire and the police for papers. The whole papers thing is so underfunded that what they do is they allocate how much your liability is. If they said, we've got to have all these cities, all these municipalities pay in. Well, I think they're going to be about $5 million when it's all said and done, if you had to write a check to fund the papers. That's how underfunded the papers is, which is why the rates keep going up. So, but that is your issue, what you got outstanding. Here's what I look at. And I think all of you should at least look, because this is kind of a gauge to help. Are we getting too much debt? Which you're not there, but it's a good gauge to have. Debt service as a percent of taxes. Okay, you're at 11%. You start crossing over 15%, that's considered you're starting to hit the boundaries. Debt to assessed value, 23. State of Kansas, 30. Still got some room. Debt service coverage is fine. Debt per capita, 5,645. Under 6,000 is considered okay. So, declining tax base. Fortunately, we don't have that. Because that's one of the worst things that can happen. If you have debt and now your tax base is shrinking, that debt still has to be paid for if you've got less people to pay it. You're on the other side of that. So you've got that going. So really the big thing to focus on here would be just the debt, how much are you paying in debt service and how much, and I think sales tax is paying, we're supposed to pay for the town center bonds. Am I right on that? Or was that coming from tax revenues?
Well, it's actually existing debt service levy as well as sales tax.
Yeah, okay. I knew there was sales tax that you guys were trying to help pay for part of that. But these are at least some metrics that you would look at to see if you're approaching too high or getting to the point. This, and I put it together, I got this from the league out of, I think there was 40 some cities between 3,000 and 6,000 in population. And then after I did this, I thought, I don't even know what it means because every city, without diving into what those cities are doing, it's hard to evaluate this. So if you looked at this on the surface, you go, well, wait a minute, that's 40 cities. They're at an average of 1429. We're at 5645. That appears we have too much debt. But when we go back and we go, do you have too much debt? It shows no. So it's hard, and that's where I wish our state would get more information so we can evaluate this stuff a little bit differently. The other problem I have is the league is always behind. They're never up to date on their data. Now this is on your cash position, and you can kind of see how we hit this, right? Statutory, 5 funds categories: property taxes, debt, personnel, now cash. It's kind of the key. So here you guys, 2019, you look at that balance and go, okay, 5 mil. So here you sit in 2025, and again, I took that whole, because that thing was just skewing everything, at 10 million. And your days in cash, quite strong. Debt per capita, which means if the city decided to just write a check to everybody, excluding town, that's how much you'd be writing a check for. That's strong. Okay? About not quite half of debt per capita, but it exceeds the benchmark, which is like 25.25. So that indicates strong. If this was down and you guys were only operating at 45 days of cash, with the amount of debt you have, that would be an issue. Because now you're starting to have to go, how do we pay for debt service? But your cash position is, for your size of city, extremely strong. Yeah, and see, this is what I'm saying. It gets a little bit skewed on the cash because of the capital projects. So I'm more interested, like the general fund. But to be honest with you, out of all these funds, if your general fund is exceeding 45 days in cash, you're protected. And the reason I say that is, you know, you rely on funds coming from the county. Well, if the county had a delay, or say something happened there, this happened in Osage County. Clerk left, treasurer had problems. It took 2 months for them to get their distributions out. Well, if you didn't have reserves set aside, what do? Because you didn't get the money. That's where you got to have some reserves, so you're good there. Your return was 1.77%. I think you have some opportunities here. The Kansas Municipal Investment Pool for overnight money is paying 3.63. Treasuries paying 3.98. So there's some opportunities just to get a little extra, if you will, because the state's very limited on what you can invest in. Pretty much payment, treasuries, CDs, savings accounts, and that's pretty much it. They don't allow you to get too far outside of that. But there's some opportunities there with the type of cash you have. Yeah, you could definitely just think if you double that, it would be almost what, 800,000 totally close to it. How much time? Am I good? Want me to wrap?
How much do you have left?
I'll tell you what, we'll go to these last couple, strengths and weaknesses. So, and again, I like to break these out. I think this is where you guys are doing really well at. You got the general fund, excellent, strong, positive cash margins. Keep in mind, cash margins, seats over your disbursement, and really the objective is on a consistent basis, if you can generate just 5 cents more than what you're paying now, we're doing great. That is kind of the cash margin goal is that. Per capita looks good. You know, weaknesses, we could get into some debates on property tax, debt per capita, administration, all this stuff. Budget review. Budget review for me is not so much gross dollars. It's more breaking it down into per capita amounts, into relationships. I want to know, when I do budgets like that for other cities, I'm usually breaking those into small details so we can see what it looks like. But that's pretty good. Let's see. Formal financial scorecard policy. I will tell you, the ones that we set this up or they've done it on their own, it's great information. I mean, you're basically saying, what do we want to try to target and set as goals? It gets into your debt per capita, your liquidity, how much should you have? It's all that stuff, and you're pretty much just stoplighting it. Here's where we're at. This is where we want to be. Are we go for green? We got to, not quite, adopt debt policy limits. The only reason we do that is so you never get over the 30%. Even though if you went through a bond issue and you were getting, but it's more internal. Doing some affordability testing. Yeah, I think there's some things on that I like to, when I'm working direct on budgets for cities and they say put something together, the first thing I do is a scorecard. Because the scorecard is what it is. It helps without diving into all the little details. You can just go, boom. Are we hitting our numbers or are we not hitting numbers? So in summary, I would just say your city financially is very strong, great cash position. Concerns would be just looking at your debt, making sure that you're not blowing through, getting close to, like I said, 43% of assessed value. And then the only other thing I would probably do is just start looking at the affordability side of it. But very strong. So, comments?
Any questions from council? It's a lot of information. And Mr. Gerber, I think, had a couple of things that you guys could clarify maybe and bring back. I don't know if you would want to coordinate that just to make sure if there's any clarity that we need that we get that from both of you guys, just making sure that anything's, everyone's on the same page for that. I can tell you years ago, the council audit was about a 3-minute presentation of flip to page 6, flip to page 16, back page, and vote to adopt. And so I personally think it's really helpful and healthy for our governing body to just have more of a gauge on the overall finances and just have a little bit more in depth there. I think that's really, really helpful to me anyway. Anyone else have questions or any more information
Can
you want?
excuse why you didn't get the information that you asked for regarding the property tax?
I have no idea. It's the same thing every year. I've come to the conclusion that Dot County is just not very transparent on anything. Normally when I'm working with the city, I just call over, ask for the treasurer, yeah, hey, I need this abstract report. Oh, yeah, no problem. And I get it emailed in 20 minutes.
Wow.
It's a 1-page report. So they had us go out to their website and you could pull up each individual. And then I go, well, but you can't export it. So what good does it do?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wish I had it because I think you all would really get a flavor of, one, concentration from the industrial side of it, because I don't know that. And two, what is, normally 90% of property taxes come from residents. I got a feeling here, just driving down.
Yeah.
It's not that way. But
Right.
I don't know how big the commercial base is. I think it's big.
That would be very helpful information for you.
So one question, and I don't know if I know how to ask this or not, but with the residentials, the number of residences in Edwardsville versus the number of commercial, we keep cutting a mill levy. Who's getting the biggest benefit for that? The residents or the commercial
Okay, great.
business?
I know that's a
And
great question.
one other thing, how accurate is the information that you are getting from the state? Like what is valuation of the average house in Edwardsville? I'm confused. I think it's not as high as they're saying that it is. And I might be completely wrong, but I think the median home in Edwardsville is about 260,000. And they're saying it's like 325,000.
I verified with the training today, and they told us 316.
360.
That's straight from them today.
Now, see, if they told you that, they should be able to get us an abstract. Because they had to pull that number from something.
Wow.
That means they have it. And so I think the difference, just in real estate background, is are you looking at homes on the tax rolls where over, I think 25% of our population are in the mobile home park, which aren't going to be on the residential property tax, that's in the other property tax. And so that might skew the average median house value comparatively.
But when you get to the commercial side, keep in mind, when that gets appraised, their assessed value is coming in at 25%. Okay, residential is 11.5%. So if you drop a mill levy, it's the commercial side, technically, just because they're paying a higher assess. So, but I don't know what it is. I wish I had that information to share, but like, if Doug's saying that, hey, we got a number from them, well, that's, what we're looking for is the number of units for residential with the appraised value, the land, home improvement, et cetera. Then you can get your averages, and it drops down to commercial, drops down to vacant lots, has all that laid out. And year over year, it's a great statistic, because sometimes you'll go, well, wait a minute. So we had 20 new homes pop up this year, and in your mind, you're going, it's easier with a smaller city, because they'll go, we didn't have any new homes, and yet they're saying, and then they find out somebody got put in the wrong taxing jurisdiction. So, you know, we're all human, so there's always errors, but I wish we could get it.
I guess the only thing I'm saying is if we lower the mill by 1 or by 2, the ones that are getting the biggest benefit from that are the big companies down in the industrial park.
Just keep in mind that every mill you drop is, so you have to go, what was it this year, 113? So 113 million. So basically, you're at, 1 mill is worth like 100 and some thousand. So you drop that 1 mill, the commercial base is probably going to go, okay, because they're going to have a lot more of assessment, if you will, that's applied to. At least that's what I'm thinking, without seeing the actual data. I just know because of the 25%, they're getting a lot more of the allocation. But I don't know how much that makes up of the total assessed value.
So that's 65, 35 is what we estimate.
On the commercial.
Without that report, yeah.
Okay, about 65 commercial, 35 residential.
Yes, actually. That's what I was thinking. The way your property taxes look, it has to be supported by commercial side. Because normally when you say 65, 35, smaller cities are normally 80, 20, some 90, 10. One city had 1 commercial customer but it made up 40% of the property tax revenue.
Mm.
What do you think happens if they lose that?
Yeah. Mm.
So that's why all the data behind it is so interesting. Otherwise, just kind of speculating about it.
Did you have any other
But that's
questions?
a good allocation though. I mean, 65.
Good. Did you have anything else, Gary?
Well, I'm sure I'll think of something when I get home.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but I do think that when we keep lowering the mill, which I've said it before, I get in trouble with everybody up here. But the businesses are down there are the ones that are getting the advantage of that. How many houses does it take to catch up with the mill or the taxes that would have been on a company like Herb or like Fastenal?
I would love to know that.
$6-7 million companies down there that are really paying quite a few. I mean, the most of our taxes.
Here's
And-
another interesting thing. If you can get the top 10 assessed values, it's another good indicator. In theory, you never want the top 10 to exceed 10% of the property taxes because you get into a concentration, meaning that if there's just 10 businesses out there, but they're making up 10% of the property taxes, and their businesses start to slide or they move, they do something, well, now you gotta go make that up. And it falls back to normally the residential side. So,
My last question was earlier in the presentation, you said something about motor vehicle tax that was lost or
well,
wasn't
it's about
collected. What's
160 some thousand, if I'm thinking somewhere in the ballpark.
Yeah, this is where we get the tax. That's probably one of the things we need to discuss because it's very clearly in the report you get. We receive it, we budget for it. So I think we just a disconnect somehow.
Okay.
But it's clearly in everything.
that's all I've got.
Okay. Did you guys have any other?
No.
No? Okay, well, I sure appreciate it. There's a couple questions I think we had between staff, so if you guys can just clear that up, get back to us, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right, just so you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 7, staff presentation and council discussion regarding the city's 2027 budget.
So my, as is typical, because everyone knows well enough by now to know that I don't have long presentations. I'll make sure you have the information you need, but I typically don't have to be long and take following on the heels of what we can link your financial discussion. I chose to do this a little longer and just focus on the discussion. And really, you know.
As long as,
typically
it's fine. If you could do just a little louder for me, sorry.
Typically, these budget presentations are at the end of our meeting, right? But I thought it would be appropriate to have this prior to the adoption of the revenue neutral resolution. So that we can lead right into that. As always, start with the calendar. Tonight we have the audit, general fund discussion, and R&R discussion and decision. As we talked about, we have to have our notice to the county a week from today. I do not think we will have any kind of discussion at the July 27 meeting, but that's something that probably needs some discussion with this group. Recipient Trina and I are gone that meeting, so certainly have something, but I don't know that we'll have much of a budget discussion at that meeting. At the August 10th meeting, we're going to set our public hearing date. Then moving through August and September, we will have the public hearing for the revenue neutral rate and the budget adoption. This schedule remains largely unchanged from the first time we saw it, but again, just to help remind everybody. continued reminder of budget priorities, starting with continued tax relief and ending with balanced budget. No surprise there, we've seen many, many times. This is something new for you. Just kind of a helpful reminder to everyone what the mill levy history of the city has looked like since I went back to 2013. Obviously, gone back to COVID. Just see how the couple things out of the general fund has gone down about 10 mils over that time. The bond and interest fund has largely remained the same over that time. And that sort of dovetails on some of the things that you were saying. You can see it's been close to 11 mils over the last however many years, it's 4 years. Questions about this, comments, anything?
Will that library column change next year when we incorporate our library, or is that just a line item there that's there?
That's just a line item that's there. A lot of cities have separate library bills. That's typically because they are separate entities from the city.
Right.
In our case, the library will be a general fund department. The director will be hired by this body, and then staff will be hired accordingly after that.
Okay, thank you, that makes sense.
Some cities also have some. I could probably take that out of there.
That's okay, no, I was just curious. Thank you.
Doug, another dumb question. Where did that money come from? Was it budgeted like last year? Was it $33,000 or something
Sorry. Which money?
on the library that was in our bills today? The library, is there $33,000 in there or something?
The library was funded for the 2026 budget for personnel for a quarter of the year.
It was.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know the exact amount, but it's 30-some thousand.
Yeah. I think as I was going through, it was around 33. I just forgot. So.
This is also not a new slide for you, but it's helpful in discussion that resolution that you'll be considering. Just a little bit. The FY 26 valuation was 124 million, almost 125 million. Preliminary number 27 that we talked about is 32.5, so up about 6%. So easy math, that means 1 mil generates $132,508. 26 cents, but we don't talk about cents. And then obviously everybody can do that math. A half a mil is 66. Final mill levy for 2026 for this tax year was 36,424. When we adopted last year, again, this is a reminder, we thought it was going to be 292, but all the, what they go through the county level, and they finalized that for us, so it's just a little bit of revenue neutral rate for 2027 is 34.346. So what that means is that if you adopt the revenue rate this year, about the mill rate of 34.46, that'd be a change of just over 2 mils for 2027. Now again, to use the correct language, that doesn't mean we're going to lose money. If we have the money, but it does mean that there would be have the potential for 270,000 for effective burn. That makes sense. And again, not to get too technical about it, but that money then is split between the general fund and debt service fund. So I know we talked about, okay, so here's some revenue neutral considerations. We talked about these. As you just heard for the last hour, the general fund is getting better. You know, in terms of cash reserves in the general fund, the number that I've always gone by from GFOA is 60 days. I need to back check myself on that, but I believe that if you go to the website, it's 60 days. We have 45 days, as noted in the last presentation. So we're probably not at the recommended level just yet for the general funds. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that our bond rating has those objective outside folks our finances and have a conversation with myself and the previous city manager. They say things are getting better, but they're not where we'd like to see them to offer you an improvement. That improvement then comes with decreased trade source. That's one of the fundamental things. You know, just like everyone, we are not immune to continued cost increases. Whether it's personnel costs, gas, asphalt, rock, whatever. Things are more expensive for everyone. That includes cities. Right now, you know, in this particular budget, we are absorbing that and it's working, but we're not immune to those cost increases. As I said last time, it's challenging to continue to fund projects with, it continues to be challenging to fund projects. As Mr. Cruz suggested, and I agree with him about this, we are getting near what I would be comfortable with our debt limits. We exempted ourselves from that 30% that the state requires if you recall. That was maybe done a year or two ago. I don't know the exact timing, but we are getting near the level where, in my mind, we're going to have some too much debt. That being said, we need to issue future debt still because we've all driven our roads. We've all seen some of the infrastructure improvements that are needed. And, you know, road projects take a significant amount of money that we just don't have ready to spend. So it is a constant tug of war between affordability and providing the appropriate level of services. As we've talked about before, tax relief, even minor and important. And we will be adding some significant expenses for the new library in 2027. And that will just be absorbed into the budget. It's about a library department, it's about $500,000 we take, I think. Some of it's already in there, but most of it's not, so that would be for 2027. That makes sense. So those are just things that we all need to consider as we make this decision.
You said some of the library cost is included, but
Well, for example, in 2026, we had 32,000 budgeted to bring a director on for 3 months.
For the end of
That's
this year.
already in the existing framework, but this will be a month beyond.
Okay.
So and this is a really high-level overview. I know that we want to be able to share some and talk through some better detail than this, but this is just where I landed with what I probably ready to show tonight. Option A was a revenue neutral. The mill revenue for the general fund would be 3.1 million. Other revenue, see that stays consistent across all scenarios. So that's sales tax, franchise fees, permits, just the whole gamut of things that we receive in the general fund. Right now, it's about 5.6 million. So that would give us a total of 8.7 in the general funds. Right now, expenditures for the state. This is hardly a deep dive into expenditures. because we don't have a lot of things set, particularly in terms of personnel, right? And as you heard, and as we've said many times, personnel drives 70 to 80% of our general fund. The expenditures right now are about 9.5 million, so that leaves a difference at first glance of 738 million, 708,000, how about that?
If I'm reading that right, we're already spending 800,000 more than we're bringing in? Or am I not?
Yes, this is the potential 2027 budget. So nothing is being spent yet, it's just potential.
So what was our total expenditures for 2025?
Right?
25, like last year, just to compare our budgeted expenditures, what our forecast is for that? Or if that's coming up later, that's okay too.
No, it's not. For 2025 was 8.4. 2026 was just over 9. The budget you adopted this year was just over 9 in expenditures. So you can see it's a 5% increase year to year to year. Given where we're at with rising costs, inflation, it's not, in my mind, that's not. The same sort of other revenue, other expenditure scenario, then if you keep the rate the same, you don't lower or increase, just keep it the same, that generates, again, that 270,000 we talked about additional. This is a 3.4 with a, and then leads to a smaller deficit. And then in terms of all, there's literally a million different scenarios that we can talk through, right? We could say we want to do raise a quarter here and lower a quarter here, or, I mean, it's just, there's so many scenarios that we can talk through. But in general, understand that any increase or decrease of a mill is plus or minus 100.
Sure. I guess I'm wondering why we're budgeting our expenditures so much higher above, like into a deficit. Do we need to pull back on expenditures, perhaps?
We need to definitely look at expenditures, right? I'm confident in two things. I'm confident that expenditures can come down. I'm also confident that taking another look at revenue that can come up with that gap. As you know, since I've been here, one of my priorities has been we do not deficit budget. Right? I know it's a priority at this point. So for the last 2 years, we have not done deficit budget, and if I have even a little bit of say in this year, we won't do it this year, right? Because that's how in my mind, that's how the city was failing financially. Not failing, but wasn't getting to the place they needed to. Here's prior. Now we are granting fund balance, getting healthier. That's largely because we budget well, and we monitor our expenses every day. Literally once a week, this group sitting over here, myself, sit down, and we talk about the marketing, same thing as you, when he was here. We sit down and talk about what's the budget look like, how are we doing, what makes sense, what doesn't. So it is very much on it. All the time.
Thank you.
What about, I'm not understanding was it named Poole that was in here, the auditor? All of these funds, he says we've got these 26 funds. Do we need that many funds, or can we consolidate some of those and maybe lighten up the bookkeeping problem or the confusion? I didn't realize we had that many funds out there. Is that typical?
That is typical. You know, we have the major funds, we have general debt, sewer, it's all it's good accounting to isolate those funds separately so that you track them better.
You know, my statement is always give me budget 101. That's what I need most of the time. That's why you're sitting in that chair and I'm not. But,
I think it's a fair.
okay. And then the other thing, I was just going to make a comment right out off my hip that I think we need to consider some raises for our employees. I think our employees have been kind of getting the short end of the stick for quite a while, and I think we need to really consider that in our budget presentation, what we do as far as budgets. That's I think our employees need to be compensated a little bit better. I think it could kind of help with retention of how many people that we've lost in the last 6 months to a year. So that's,
Yeah, certainly if you talk to folks who have been part of that, it's an issue that is on their mind.
I just want to throw that out there so the whole council hears what I think about it. So
And I don't think we've ever had a year that we didn't give an increase, at least as long as I've been here. Margaret's been here longer. Do you remember ever not giving an increase?
They've gotten an increase. Not been the same, but they've gotten an increase every year. But that, I would assume you will bring us some scenarios, which would include salary increases for next year that you've done in the past, bringing us some different items to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are all at the point where we don't want to have this debate every
Yes.
year.
No, it's not it, right.
I mean, we don't want to feel like we're begging, we're complaining, right? We don't want to, we want to have budgetary control, but you also want to make sure the employees are taken care of.
Absolutely.
Again, sort of a push-pull, right? And so I think with that in mind, we would like to see some sort of salary schedule that everyone can agree with, and we just know that at the beginning of every year, this is how it happens. I think that's the most important. I think we have that, and I think we could continue it, but I also think there's some discussion about trying to that change.
Correct. And we're not setting the mill tonight.
What you will do in agenda item number 8 is you will set the max.
And then we finalize later.
Right.
Finalize later.
Right.
You can, the number I put in there is our letter rate. Obviously, that's a big policy decision, so that's up to this body, how you would like to see it. But whatever number you pick tonight is the most that we can.
Correct.
And then any budgetary, like the finalized numbers, we could have included salary
Yes.
compensation increase.
Yes.
Correct.
I don't want to talk about salary numbers at this point because I think it's not premature. We definitely need to have that conversation, but
Right.
I want to make sure that we're not setting the wrong expectation with anyone, with everybody, and it's.
Absolutely.
That's all I have.
Okay. Questions or comments for Mr. Gerber?
When do we decide what the mill levy will actually be? At what point?
What we do is, again, the next item number 8, we will set a max. And then at the September 14th,
Okay.
that is when it gets absolutely finalized.
Thank you.
We adopt a resolution and ordinance that says this is, there's a couple things you have to adopt. One of them is a revenue neutral. Proving that you had a public hearing and then you actually adopt the budget with the rate.
Okay, thank you.
And you set it approximately because it can change
So to clarify just a little bit too, that tonight we're deciding if the maximum rate is 34.346 or if our maximum rate will be above 34.346. So we set the maximum tonight, whether it's that revenue neutral rate or a higher number. The maximums tonight.
I don't remember doing that.
We have. I remember voting to exceed it. So last year was the total was absolutely didn't exceed it.
Right.
The year before we did.
Would be, what do you want me to say? I say we exceed it, but what do you want me to say as far as?
Oh.
Doesn't say a number.
Yeah.
No.
The max.
So,
But that's.
Right, I know.
we're just having conversations on what
Right.
potential motions could be. So it would be worth, I think, council conversation in if we're wanting to, and this is kind of the difference too, is if we're not going to exceed revenue neutral, then I think staff would prefer to know this evening instead of going through a whole lot of different budget scenarios and spending a lot of time on that, so they know what budget to prepare for. If we are very possibly going to exceed revenue neutral, then the motion would be the intent to exceed at a maximum of a certain rate. If we're not going to exceed revenue neutral, the motion would be make a motion to not exceed revenue neutral with a maximum mill rate of 34.346. I can tell you personally, I have talked to hundreds of our residents very recently who are very, very concerned about property taxes and the burden that that they feel month to month as they're paying their bills. I feel like we have the capacity we're building a brand new building for our staff. We have brand new equipment, very new cars and things like that. We have healthy funds. Our residents aren't feeling the same way. And so I think that personally, we have the capacity to continue taking care of our staff, making sure we're increasing compensation, making sure they're taken care of without exceeding, and then just setting that standard ahead of time. And so that's kind of my perspective on it. If anybody has other thoughts or.
You can exceed to, throw a number out, 1 mil, but you can also not get to 1 mil, correct? As long as you don't go over what would be voted on tonight.
Yes.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
So theoretically, you could say we're going to raise the mill, but then at the 13th meeting, we're not raising it. We're coming down to raise 1/2 or keep it even, right?
Yeah, we can say we're not going to exceed this amount, but then when we go over the budget and we look at everything that they're giving us, we can still go, well, we're just going to stay revenue neutral.
Right. So I think,
So if we did that, that doesn't mean that that's what we're doing.
gotcha.
So what, excuse me, whatever you decide tonight, then we'll have some more detailed scenarios. I guess, what I put in here was that the resolution as it's currently written states that you'll keep the same mill rate as you have right now. And so what I would envision with that is developing a detailed scenario for that, and then developing a detailed scenario for you that relates to revenue neutral. But if you are completely sure that you want to go revenue neutral, as I've said a couple times, if revenue.
So I have a question. You know that I would rather go revenue neutral, but when the auditor was talking about the overall property taxes and how it affects when we go revenue neutral, who it really affects, like Garrett asked, and he said 60. Did he say 60% of it affects the industrial area?
said that.
You said that?
Yeah, that's-
Okay. But then I thought, did somebody say, or did he say that it overall affects the residents in a bad way?
No,
No,
No?
No.
no.
Not at all.
What-
Okay.
What he said was that with a mill levy increase, commercial businesses realize more of a decrease in residents.
Right.
For two reasons, because they're a big part of the tax base and their
Right.
assessed
That's-
higher.
Obviously. But I thought that he had said something about it affecting, like overall affecting the residents. Then I just misheard.
so going revenue neutral just means we're not increasing
Right,
taxes.
right.
We're bringing the same amount of revenue in. That could seem like a bigger benefit potentially to not have that increase on a commercial property
Right.
because they're taxed at 25%
Mhm.
instead of at 11.5%. But across the board, it just means we're not raising taxes. We'd be bringing the same amount of revenue as the prior year. So it helps everyone across the board, except for if you think about the other piece of that, whereas if we continually raise taxes and then we're worried about the declining tax base. So then we have businesses leave because our taxes are so high, and then we have to put that on the backs of our residents, which I did hear from business owners as well that are very concerned about the taxes in this community.
Okay. That's what I needed to clarify. I just wanted to make sure that I was hearing it right.
Doug, and you make sure that we're going to have enough money for salaries and increases. Roads, you know what our projections possibly could be. This would all be able to happen.
Oh, one thing that wasn't included that would help Doug's numbers, I think, is we are getting $800,000 toward library costs from the unified government. So that will help not only this year, but probably years into the future. And that's if we don't get any further funds this year from the library board. And so that can offset that. That should be arriving any day if it's not here already.
Yeah, have that. I'm not- I don't think they're up to that. Project, they'll offset some things. Your question. That I said, try to make our budget. That's revenue, and that's not right. But the same. Right, that's a challenge. And I think we're all feeling it in our operational budgets. Stuff's getting done because we have the same staff. I think we're part of things that
Right.
they do the right thing for the city.
I just don't want us to paint ourselves in a corner tonight, for lack of better. What if we set the mill tonight, set not to exceed 34, but you bring us back some budgets, which includes things we need to do, things, salaries, that's, boy, we can't go past this. This is where I'm coming from.
I'm thinking more raise it 1 mil, but then you can always lower it after they do some research.
Right, we're not setting it tonight.
No, but
This is the
you're
confusion
limited.
The
every year.
possibility.
Right, right. I just don't want to set it too low tonight, is my point.
34 is essentially revenue.
Right.
That's
It's
below
34.
We need to,
Right.
we need to make more than revenue neutral. We're having buildings built and so forth, we gotta take advantage.
So if I make a motion to exceed revenue neutral, what, they need a
You
number?
need a number
Yeah, by
to, what,
3 point, what would it be,
saying
4
we're not
point?
gonna go past this.
So revenue neutral. $34.346. Our current mill levy rate for this budget is 36.40. Those are some benchmark numbers. But again, as we've talked about, the number of scenarios is.
And how much,
Whatever
sorry.
you think you cannot exceed.
Right, that's where I get a little cautious.
so the entire difference is about $270,000. How much is in that earned interest set aside fund?
Last year it was
So that would be another revenue that's not included to help offset as well. If we chose to use it toward some of the equipment or
Right. I
funds.
totally agree. This is not what I want to set the mill, but I want to set us a cushion, guess for lack of better. Doubtful we to go there, but I would rather have some room, if that makes sense.
No,
Not
it makes
setting our mill levy. So I'll just go ahead and make a motion. Oh, unless everybody's done with their,
Or do you have?
or somebody else want to make a motion.
My motion was gonna add 1 mil. And then it can be lowered as they research what needs to be. That'll give us some breathing room that we can always get out of if we need to,
Right.
if I'm understanding that right.
What number?
It would be the 30, what was the 36? The, that's what, and as it is right now, the mill levy is 34.46.
At revenue neutral.
So, yeah, I don't want to do it that
If
way.
that helps. Okay. Just to clarify, I do vote on this.
Yeah, I would like to
This-
make the motion to exceed revenue new. Resolution 2026-13, resolution declaring the city's intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate, R&R as mandated by the state of Kansas, not to exceed the 36.424.
Second.
I'll write that down. I have a motion from Councilman Malat, a second from Councilman Shriver. Will the clerk please call roll?
Malat,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Babcock,
No.
Berard,
Yes.
Mayor.
No. Okay. Next. Okay.
I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is that what it was?
So we need a motion to set the public hearing to exceed revenue neutral September 14th, meeting at 6 PM. To be held at the Edwardsville City Council chambers. I believe somebody can just so move.
So moved.
In a second. So would we need a new motion? From, I guess, anybody?
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2026-13. Second.
Okay, I'm gonna,
Is that what we're doing?
we have a motion from Councilman Shriver and a second this time from Councilman Adcox. Will the
Wait,
cl-
hold on.
Okay,
Is it, hold on. Is that the motion that I just said no to though?
yes.
Okay, then, sorry.
So the motion would be, so the motion is the resolution that includes the maximum mill rate. So it says we are exceeding revenue neutral with a maximum of 36.424, setting a public hearing for September 14th. So that's what this motion. So we have a motion from Councilman Shriver without a second,
Okay.
and a second from Councilman Malat. Will the clerk please call roll?
Malat,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Babcock.
Nope.
Yes.
And no. Never mind. That's okay. On to item 9, which is city council to consider the mayor's interim city manager appointment and associated appointment agreement. This one would be a good idea to just have an opportunity for council to discuss personnel matters. Could you guys give me the verbiage that we need exactly for an executive session on this?
We didn't ever change the agenda. Okay.
We'll have to.
Get motion to recess. Close and executive meeting. Following
Oh, wow. Okay.
interim
Eight PM, do you think that's? Okay. So we have a motion from Councilman Adcox to add the executive session with all of that information.
Second.
And a second from Councilman Shriver. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 Amend and add it. Can we just so move to recess for the same reason?
So moved to recess for the same reason.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Shriver, a second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 This conference will now be recorded.
Make a motion to return to regular session.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Shriver, a second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 Return.
Make a motion to return to executive session for 20 minutes.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Shriver, a second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 This conference will now be recorded.
Move to return to regular session.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Malat, a second from Councilman Shriver. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you. So we're coming out of executive session with action, just waiting on motion verbiage, and then we will move along. Oops. We could go through council comments while you're working on the motion. Is that okay?
I think it, the mayor's intent is the council and sent to the director as in terms of.
Yes.
So with that, that would be track that drafted on the city council. That prior to consenting to the appointment for the entering the contract. Go over the proposed terms that I'm aware of. Or I can try to print out.
Would it be possible to, if the council is comfortable with it, give general authority to the mayor, assuming there's no substantial changes, but then we could just email it out and they could review it, but I could, that way we don't have to wait to finalize. What's the best practice?
I just don't want to, there's no, it's still preliminary draft.
Could we just have a 5-minute special meeting? Just come down and vote and go back home.
Yeah, there you go.
I'd like to read the contract. Margaret, would you be able to come down for 10 minutes to make a vote? Next day or two? Yes, I want to read the contract.
I don't care.
Okay, I'm all with you.
Yes.
Or we could do an online even.
Either way.
So Garrett, Councilman Malat, it would prefer to read the contract prior to what's the best, because we also don't want to put it off 2 weeks. So what would be the quickest way to just make sure that,
Is there a time that you would announce this week for a?
Oh, boy.
Meeting around 6 o'clock? Could be.
evenings are hard?
No,
Send instructions on how to do
Evenings are
it.
better.
Unless you want to hear my granddaughter.
Oh.
It does have to be an open meeting if we're doing a special meeting, so we want to make sure the public has access.
Mayoral appointment, council, that's without a contract, that's just. So we want to make sure.
You tell me, I can make anything happen. Evening.
Yeah, me too.
Evening.
Evenings are.
What's the earliest evening time that works for you both?
4.
It would probably be 5 for me.
Christy, is 5 o'clock generally good for you for a very short meeting?
Mhm.
So would that work for you, 5 o'clock? Would Wednesday the 15th, which is the day after tomorrow, would that give you time and would that give council time to review the document?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we are short.
Perfect. So I think our action tonight would be a motion to call a special meeting for July 15th, council chambers at 5 PM. And we will publicly post the agenda, including background documents.
Yes.
So we just need that motion formalized.
Make a motion to hold a public meeting Wednesday, July 15th at 5 PM in council chambers, and we will post the documents. Is that right?
Yes.
Chris, need a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Shriver, a second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 Okay. Moving along. City manager report.
One thing this evening is just to talk very briefly about the aisle that we have down at Riverside North. Credit to a couple guys sitting over here and Brian kind of spearheaded it, with both Tim and Chantal, and set up the terms, making sure that stuff got routed off appropriately. As you know, we don't typically do that, but we just felt like the storm was significant enough, there's enough damage that it would be, everyone's best interest to do that this time, so we did have 98 loads dumped, almost 500 cubic yards.
Gosh.
So it was a pretty good sized amount. We were bringing in someone to haul off that load rather than having us spend 3 weeks chipping it. So some of it we have for us, and then we're still kind of working on evaluating and getting the cemetery taken. You know, our street on 20 or 30 graves over there, so we're working through that and trying to get that solved. We had a talk with insurance and we're working through that as well.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Everhart.
I just have a couple things. I know you work really hard to tighten the budget and not put that burden on our residents. So I'm just hoping that we can see a proposed budget that will stay within revenue neutral. I think that's everybody's hope that we can do that if possible. That's all I got.
Councilman Mott.
I got a whole scroll. I understand there was a light pole crashed up on 98th Street on the new. What happens on that? Is there an insurance that takes care of that? Does that street belong to us now? And is there insurance or maybe an arrest or something involved in that that will compensate for that damage?
Yeah, I don't know. One way or another, I'm not sure if they have insurance or ours, but again, we're waiting. That would be after that. I'm not sure if they have insurance.
Oh, goodness.
Is that street ours now? Is it ours? It's all been belongs to us.
I didn't think it was.
I was gonna not congratulate, I was gonna tell Brian and all the crew that was doing the tree removal and stuff down at the Riverfront Park. It's just cool that you did that and appreciate so much of what you guys do, sacrificing your weekends to do that. It's really appreciated, whether you know it or not. So, the other thing is, I don't need to say this one, but I will. Our vehicles all up to date, police cars that we've ordered, and is there an ambulance on the way or anything? How's our transportation or our vehicle equipment on the, I'm gonna say specifically the police department side?
So Brian just got his new truck in 2 weeks ago or so. He has two vehicles, as I understand it, they're around, I'm sure what their status is, if they're getting outfitted or what the situation is.
Who are they getting assigned to? Are they getting put in on the daily units, or are they like take homes or something like that? Okay. I was just kind of curious, because, the way the budget is so tight and everything, I think we need to maybe do a little bit more looking over on our vehicle equipment. So anyway, and then the fire department, I had a couple of tours of it, and it's pretty cool. We need to get the rest of the red doors up, but they look awful good, the red fire department. Pardon me? Okay, I can't hear you, so.
It's sort of, we're behind.
Okay, sorry. Didn't mean to make you mad.
That's all right.
That's all I've got. Thank you. I'm stirred up enough.
Councilman Shriver.
I'd like to echo what Councilman Malat stated, all of the city staff from Chantal, all of the city staff who helped. I'm sure it's multiple people with the storm. Took us by surprise, and I think different areas were affected different. I know there was a couple of streets just totally blocked off. So power lines, you name it, and the efficient communication we had from everybody. So everybody was in the loop with what was going on. So thank you for everybody's efforts. And I think it's still going on. Obviously the pile of brush down at the park. We don't know everything that goes into it, and I know it's a whole lot. So, and the weather was extremely hot. So thank you all. Express to your staff, thank you too. Like to thank Mayor Cahar for organizing and running the harvesters. She organizes that every other month, and through her efforts, some people just show up to help out for a few hours, which is a lot. But the organization comes from Mayor Cahar with organizing with harvesters, the volunteers, bringing treats and snacks. And it's a big event for people that are feeling the pinch of the high inflation. I think there was over 180 families, something like that. But it was a very big event. So thank you, Mayor Cahar. I like to repeat this, that I know I've said it before. We all sit up here with, I think, the same intent for good intentions for the city itself, for the residents, everybody involved, for the employees, for our equipment, everything that goes into running a city. We may not agree on everything. I think our collaboration is just imperative to sit up here and discuss things. I know I've thought certain ways about ideas or things I thought should run away when I've heard different discussion from different council members bring up different points, and it's just interesting. And I think at the end of the day, like I said, we may not agree on everything, but we are collaborating up here every time we meet and discuss all the issues for the city. So I appreciate everybody's input. I always appreciate every meeting and discussion that we have. So, Mr. Gerber, thank you so much for the budget, preparing the budget for us. You make it seem easy. I know it's not, and we're going to get through this process one way or another. We've done it for years, so
Appreciate all your help. Thank you.
Councilman Adcox.
I had just one question. Do we know how long 110th going into KCK is going to be closed? If they just closed that, used to be able to go 110th to.
So they're working on making down exit. It's closed for the next 2 months, and I think we'll want to have it open time for the race. And just that one, and then it will be closed after the race in September, and then we'll be closing it for a couple of months.
Okay, so you used to be able to go straight through. And you're not going to be able to do that anymore for a while. Okay. That's it. Okay.
Okay, well, going back to right after our last meeting, I think it was, the city staff held a hot dog social at the city park, which I think was really surprising in the turnout. There were a lot of people that showed up. Our police department really helped out there. They just jumped right in and started cooking hot dogs and taking care of our community. And so wanted to thank all the staff that helps put that on. Storm cleanup, I know that's been hit already, but that's something that can't be planned. And it had to have our fire, public works, other staff just jump in and fill a need is really, really appreciated by our community. That was a lot of damage, and particularly in some areas that was unusual storm damage. So thank you to everybody that helped with that. The light pole down on 98th, I believe there's been another one a while back that was hit on 98th Street as well by like an Amazon driver. And so I'll try to get the address or location for that. But while we're looking at 98th Street light poles, that might be a good one to add to the list. One thing that I've noticed, every once in a while we have these big construction projects, street construction projects, and then months later we hear from residents on, well, this didn't get done, this is still outstanding, things like that. I thought we might be able to start, maybe send out a postcard as a project is ending and say, hey, you know, because we have agreements with all of these homeowners. If there's something outstanding, let us know now before we release the construction crew. Something along those lines, just to open up that communication so we hear from our residents while we can have the construction crew take care of it instead of put it on the backs of our public works department. If that's possible without adding too much, I think would be helpful for our staff and our residents.
I think Brian and I both see the our process.
Okay.
So it's some discussions about.
We talked about that. We had a couple gentlemen talk to us at the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Cooper and Mr. Ramsey, about the technical review committee for drainage. What would need to be done to have the technical review committee investigate this water issue? Okay. Okay.
Who's on there, what that consists of, and how it works.
So it is a portion of the planning commission. I know that because we appointed them a while ago, but I'm not sure how that all works either. I remember that was something that was brought to the attention of council several months ago, that we needed to establish the technical review committee, but I don't think they've been utilized yet. And so if we could look into that and then give whether it's council's direction or Mr. Cooper and Mr. Ramsey direction and what we'd need to do to initiate the process, just to get a second set of eyes on it, would be great, and see if there's anything that can be done to help. I know our community was very concerned last time Evergy was coming through with the talks of a substation. I know we don't have any say outside of our city boundaries, but I would sure appreciate looking into what can be done if they're talking about taking property or diminishing property values with gigantic lines. If we have a say in if they can come through our city, and or where they can come through our city, would be great to find out on that. Almost done. Edwardsville Mobile Pantry, I do not do that alone. Thank you, Margaret, for bringing that up. I have great volunteers, great community partners, city staff that helps get us set everything up, and so appreciate that so much. We were able to serve 691 people, 15,430 pounds of groceries. I know I say this a lot, but these are the faces that I'm considering many times and hearing their stories as they come through the line, waiting hours for a trunk load of groceries. That I am considering when we're voting on budget and whether or not to increase taxes. Councilman Shriver pointed out to us the last UG newsletter that came to the email said that Wyandotte County residents will be able to use the hazardous waste disposal site free of charge, which is really confusing because the update we got from our commissioner last time said it was going to be like $300 a pop. So after hearing that from Councilman Shriver, I did reach out to Commissioner Comp. Hopefully we can get that information out soon and communicated, so we know, is it $3 a person, is it $300 a person, or is it free of charge? Because those are vastly different, and we don't want to just surprise bill to the city.
My understanding is it's a charge. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's free. It's like $3.
Yeah, and I
A person? Drop off.
so if you go drop off a tire, it's $217, which is I won't use the word I'm thinking of, but unacceptable for residents in our community. We're not going to put that on the backs of our taxpayers. I think we need to probably shred whatever agreement we have with them and not use it anymore if that's the case and figure out a backup plan. But that at least needs to be clearly communicated to our city staff, to our governing body, and to our residents. So hopefully that'll just be on the awareness list, as well as when the Wyandotte County is using the county to qualify for grants for cleaning up Kansas communities, EPA grants, that we would, if they're using us, we should get part of that revenue that comes in for those grants. Otherwise, they just need to say Kansas City, Kansas. So we can look into that further. Tax relief is number one concern with 99% of the people I've talked to, and it is hundreds and hundreds of people recently, including business owners right here in our community, that are saying, I don't know if we'll be able to stay if the business is closed. That's more on the backs of our taxpayers. I believe we can go revenue neutral. That's what I'm going to encourage. We have other funds coming in, and I know I don't say that at the expense of our staff. I think we can do that, including taking care of our staff and making sure we can get those increases. With that said, have a great night, and we'll see you next time.